crochet lovers, and welcome to my channel Spaß mit Faden. Today I'm going to show you how I've crocheted this beautiful little bag. As you can see, it turned out very beautiful and pretty, and you can close the whole thing up with this little button in the center, and it just looks like this. I really did enjoy myself while crocheting it, and my bag is 18 centimeters wide, and in the length we have 15 centimeters. You can actually crochet this little bag in every length and width that you really prefer. In the instructions I will explain you how you can make it in your preferred size, and it turned out like this. And I just want to tell you now what you'll need to crochet together with me, and I really can recommend this pattern to crochet beginners as well, because it is very easy to crochet, and although it finishes very fast. And I want to show you how it turned out. I really think it looks beautiful, and as I said, I want to tell you now what you'll need to crochet this little bag with me, and then we will already start with the instructions. To crochet with me together now this lovely bag, these are the things that you'll need. First of all, be sure to get some cotton yarn. I'm going to use today this lovely color changing yarn and the 4mm hook. You'll need a yarn needle and some stitch markers. If you don't have stitch markers, you can of course work with safety pins too. And we'll need some scissors. And please enjoy now the pattern. I really hope that you like it. I want to start crocheting my bag by creating a slip knot first. Then I want to grab my hook and insert it into that slip knot and pull the slip knot very tight. I want to chain now 40 chains. These 40 chains correspond to a width of 18 centimeters. If you want your bag to be more wide, you can of course chain more. If you want it to be more narrow, you can of course chain less. The only thing that you have to take care of is that your chains are divisible by 2. And as I said, I want to crochet 40 chains now. I just grab the yarn and always pull it through the loop on my hook. This is my first chain, my second chain, my third, fourth, and fifth chain, and we will see each other again when I chain my 40 chains. I've crocheted my 40 chains now, and I want to start with row number 1 by crocheting a slip stitch into the very second chain from my hook. This means I just want to insert my hook now into the second chain from my hook and yarn over, and for a slip stitch I now want to pull this yarn through all the loops on my hook, just like this. And into my next chain I want to work now a half double crochet. For a half double crochet I want to yarn over and insert my hook, as I said, into the next chain, yarn over again and pull this yarn now through the chain. And as you can see, I have 3 loops now on my hook. I want to yarn over and pull this yarn now through those 3 loops on my hook. Then I want to go to my next chain and work again a slip stitch in it. So I just insert my hook into the next chain, yarn over and pull this yarn through all the loops on my hook. And we want to always take turns with our half double crochets and our slip stitches. So now that we've worked a slip stitch, we want to work again a half double crochet into our next chain. So please just yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain, yarn over and pull your yarn through this chain. You'll then have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull your yarn now through all the 3 loops on your hook. Please continue to always take turns with your slip stitches and your half double crochets till you're at the very end of your first row, and then we will meet each other again when you're at the end of row number 1, and I want to show you how you finish this row and start with your second row. I'm now at the end of row number 1, and as you can see I have 2 chains left. The last stitch that I've crocheted was a slip stitch. This means into the very second last chain I now want to work a half double crochet, and we've got 1 last chain left. We always want to start and finish our rows now with slip stitches. So I just want to crochet now into my very last chain, 1 slip stitch, and I'm finished now with row number 1. I want to start every new row by chaining just 1 and turn my whole work around. And what I want to do now is to crochet into this very first stitch just 1 slip stitch again. The pattern is that we always want to work our stitches now in the back loop only. As you can see, normally a stitch is made out of 2 loops. I want to show you it by grabbing it up. Those are the 2 loops a stitch is normally made of. And I now want to crochet all my stitches in the back loop only. As I said, we start and end every row with one slip stitch. So I just want to insert my hook now in between those two loops and grab the back loop only. Then I want to yarn over and pull my yarn through all the loops for a slip stitch. And into my next stitch, I want to work a half double crochet now again. This means I want to yarn over and go to my next stitch and again insert my hook in between those two loops and grab the back loop only. Then I want to yarn over and pull my yarn through and work just a half double crochet. We want to now continue to crochet the second row till we are at the very end. Please just make sure that you always crochet your stitches into the back loop only. And you always want to crochet a slip stitch and then again a half double crochet. So please just take turns with your half double crochets and your slip stitches and work just every stitch, as I said, into the back loop only. And we'll meet each other again at the end of row number 2. And then I want to show you again how we start row number 3, but this will be the pattern. We'll just continue to crochet our whole back by just crocheting the second row over and over again. I'm now at the end of row number 2, and the last stitch that I've crocheted was now a slip stitch. This means into the following stitch I want to work again into the back loop only a half double crochet. And now I'm at the very end of row number 2, and please don't skip this very last stitch here. We always, as I said, want to start our rows with slip stitches and want to finish them with slip stitches too. This means I want to go to this very last stitch and again grab the back loop only and work my slip stitch in it. And now my second row is completed. For every following row, I now want to chain just one and turn this whole thing around. And I want to work now into the very first stitch, again into the back loop only a slip stitch like this. And then I want to crochet a half double crochet again into the back loop only. Always just crochet one slip stitch. And after that we want to crochet into the back loop only again our half double crochet. Our rows always start with slip stitches and they end with slip stitches as well. And at the beginning of every row we want to chain one and turn the whole thing around. As I said, we want to stay in the pattern and crochet every stitch just in the back loop only. And when I'm finished with my 30 row, this means I just want to continue this pattern till I've crocheted 30 rows. We will meet each other again, and I want to show you then how we close this whole thing up to a bag. I'm now just at the end of row number 3, but I want to show you how the very last stitch can hide itself. I've just crocheted now one slip stitch. This means I have to crochet into my next stitch in the back loop only now a half double crochet. And it looks like we're finished with our row, but please make sure to always grab in the back this very last back loop too and crochet your slip stitch in it. I just wanted to show you that this last stitch can really hide itself. We always end, as I said, with a slip stitch, and I just want to continue now to crochet this pattern row by row till I'm at the end of round number 30, and then we will meet each other again. I'm now finished with crocheting my 30 rows, and I want to show you how you can count them. Because what we want to do is always count these edges as rows. These are the edges that really stand out of our pattern a little bit. It would be this one and this one and this one, and I just want to count them now as my rows. This means, for example, that this is one row and the following row would be this one. This means the next edge, and we want to quit to crochet when we're finished with our edge number 30. This is this very last row, and what I want to do now is to crochet one last row with single crochets, and then I want to show you how I close this whole thing up to a beautiful little bag. So now that I've completed my edge number 30, I want to crochet one more row with single crochets. I just want to chain one and then turn my whole work around again, and as you can see, this is our very last edge. In my case it was row number 30. And now I want to crochet single crochets, and what we want to do when we crochet our single crochets now is to make sure to grab both loops from our stitch. So we don't want to work them only in our back loop, we want to really work them into both loops. For a single crochet I want to insert my hook now into the very first stitch. yarn over and pull my yarn through the stitch. And as you can see, I have 2 loops now on my hook. I want to yarn over and pull my yarn through those 2 loops, and we've just crocheted our first single crochet. I now want to continue with this row by always grabbing up the 2 loops of our next stitch and just crochet a single crochet in it again, like this, and we will see each other again when I'm at the very end of this row, and I want to show you then how we fold this whole thing up to a back and stitch it up to a back as well. I'm now at the end of my row with my single crochets, and as you can see I have 1 stitch left, and in this very last stitch of course I want to crochet a single crochet as well, and my row is completed now. What I want to do now is to chain 1, and then I want to leave enough yarn over. With enough yarn I mean like 60 centimeters, and I want to pull this whole yarn now through this very last chain, and with this yarn we later want to sew our whole back up together. So please make sure to really leave enough yarn over. And now I want to show you how we fold this whole thing up to a back and how we sew it up to a back. So now that I've finished my very last row with my single crochets, I just placed my work onto the table like this. And my very last row with the single crochets is here, and there we did start to crochet our whole back. This is the yarn that left over from our slip knot in the beginning. What I want to do now is to fold this whole thing up to a back. I just want to grab this very last row of my single crochets, and then I want to count 6 edges down. This is my first, my second, my third, fourth, 5th and my 6th edge, and I just want to grab now my row with the single crochets and go to this very 6th edge like this and just lay it up there, and it looks now like this. And later we want to grab this part and just fold it down, and this will be our back done. What I want to do now is to mark those 2 edges. As I said, I just counted 6 of these rows that stand a little bit out of the pattern, and I want to go to my row with the single crochets and really go to number 6 of these edges, and I want to mark now with a stitch marker these 2 edges together, and then I want to show you how I sew up the whole back together. So what I've done now, after I've crocheted my very last row of my single crochets, is to fold the whole back together as I showed you. This is the yarn that we left over at the end of our row of the single crochets, and I just took my yarn needle now and just put the yarn through it, and what I want to do now is to sew up these ends together. So I just used a stitch marker to mark my row with my single crochets and the 6th edge together. And what I want to do now is to take my yarn needle and just insert it into the very 6th edge that we counted down, and then I want to pull my yarn through this stitch like this till I'm at the very end, and then I can already remove my stitch marker just like this. And what we've done now is to really connect these 2 edges now. And as you can see now, my yarn is coming from the back. We want to sew this whole thing up together by always inserting our yarn needle first in between the 2 edges, and after this stitch I want to insert my yarn needle then again into the edge. I want to show you how I mean it. My yarn is coming from the back, so I just make sure to insert my yarn needle from the back to the front like this and just pull it through. And now I want to pull my whole yarn through the stitch again to sew the whole thing up together like this. I'm nearly at the end, and please make sure to don't pull your yarn too tight, leave it a bit loose. And now we've done this, we've just stitched up in between our 2 edges. This means my yarn is coming now from the front, that I want to insert my hook now onto the edge. I want to show you how I mean this. First I want to insert my yarn needle into the edge like this, and the edges are always those patterns. And now I just want to pull my yarn through it again. These 2 edges I always want to grab together, because otherwise the pattern wouldn't look as pretty when we sew up the whole thing together. And now my yarn is again coming from the back, and I want to now insert my yarn needle in between those 2 edges. This means I just want to insert it right here in between the edges, and sew it up again together. And now my yarn is coming again from the front, and I just inserted it in between the two edges, and now I want to again grab the edge. I want to show you one more time what I mean with the edge. Those are the edges, and we always want to stitch up first those two edges together like this. And in our next stitch, we then want to insert our yarn needle in between those two edges. Please just make sure to stitch up your whole back like this together till you're at the very end of your row. And then I want to show you how you can stitch up the other side as well with the same yarn. This means we don't want to cut our yarn off. I want to show you how you can just go to the other side with your yarn. So now that I've stitched up the left side of my back, I want to do the same thing with the right side, of course, as well. I just made my very last stitch, and as you can see, it turned out very beautiful. And what I want to do now is to hide my yarn, because as you can see, this is all closed up, but we want to come with our yarn now to the right side to be able to sew this whole thing up together as well. So what I want to do is to hide my yarn by grabbing my yarn needle and just insert it into that very edge and just pull it through. It doesn't matter how many stitches you pull it through, and then I want to come up again after a very short distance, as you can see. And I then want to grab my yarn and just pull it through all of this. After I've done that, I want to insert my yarn needle again at the same spot where the yarn comes out, so that you can't see it from the outside. I just want to insert it right there where my yarn comes up, and I want to again just skip some stitches and come up again as this, and pull my yarn through it. And as you can see, it totally hides itself, because we always make sure to insert our yarn needle into the same space where our yarn is coming out. And I just want to insert my yarn needle, and I want to continue to do this till I'm at the very next edge. And here I want to sew the whole back up together as we did it on the other side as well. And once you're finished with all of that, we will see each other again. So after I've stitched up my whole back together, I've decided to also crochet a little carrying strap for it. The instructions for this carrying strap you can already find on my channel Spaß mit Faden. And what I've done too is to add a little button into the center to close up my whole back very beautifully. I really love this pattern, and I had a lot of fun while crocheting it, and my little back just turned out very beautiful. And if you have now an as beautiful back as me, please make sure to subscribe my channel and to like and comment this video. I really do hope that we will see each other by the next time again.